Can we eat it? Can we use it as medicine? Can we make a material? What can we do?
I love this
And
answer.
I think my favorite would be, yeah, this mushroom that we haven't discovered yet, that has no
utility.
purpose, not utility for humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there's so many out there.
Hi, people. Thank you so much for listening. We love bringing you these conversations with experts that we think you should know, and remind you all that it's okay to be wrong, because we model this for you every single week right here on this podcast. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel, like this episode, and most importantly, hit that notification bell to stay up to date for when the next episode is live. The more of you that engage, the better guests we can get. So honestly, this is for you, not for us. Thank you. Let's get into it.
Welcome to episode 3 of Often Wrong. So far, we've discoursed about discourse and grief. And now that we've talked about what happens when part of your world ends, today I think we should get into what we can do to make a new one, like mushrooms can do.
Today, we're joined by powerhouse author, curator, and art and ecology researcher, Yasmine Ostendorf-Rodríguez. But who are we? No way you forgot already. But in case you did, I'm Lisa Nwankwo.
And I'm Claire Cornetta. And this is Often Wrong. Woo.
Okay, so how are we doing? There's so many ways to answer that question right now.
Yes, there are. Well, I'm doing well. I think the last little bit here for me has been dominated by working on a few different films and just being really immersed in stories, which I love and is a wonderful place to be in. But it's been a lot of work, so I'm a little tired. How are you?
I feel that. I guess similarly, but probably less than you. I've been that, and also traveling, which has its own whole level of storytelling to it. But I'm also exhausted. But I am so excited that we're here. I don't know. I think one big thing about what we're both talking about, which is storytelling, whether it's through filmmaking or through traveling around the country to say hello to your friends and family, there's just so much about community. And I think that really ties into what we're talking about today. There's so many ways to relate to different types of people. Also, I kind of feel like this feeling of this version of the story depending on where you are. And I think that, and I was thinking about that in connection with this podcast, how this story sounds to someone who's listening that we don't know, and how it's going to land with them based on who they're with and what they're doing. And I don't know, the topic of mushrooms is rife with metaphor. There's so many ways that it could go, and I keep wanting to make a metaphor out of it, and I'm probably going to, but I'm really trying to resist. So I'll start doing that now.
Yeah. Well, I have faith in you. However, there is so much about design and just how we move through the world that is powered in the same way that fungi is powered. I think I would go so far as to say it's not really metaphors. It's just comparing things that are both true. Well, is that what a metaphor is? I'll be honest. I get metaphors, similes, and what's the other one? Metaphor, simile, and
I want to answer this question as a former English major, but I don't remember. So, but you're on something.
Analogies. Analogies.
Yeah.
I get those. I don't know. I don't remember. I think simile has like or as in it. But so I guess it is metaphors. Never mind.
You know
Good
what?
job.
That's not what this is about. We don't need to be right about this. It's okay.
No, we do not.
We actually don't need to be
this
right
is
about
not a hill I'm
anything.
going to die
It's
on.
called Often Wrong, so we can.
Amen.
Yeah, here we go.
Amen. Okay.
So
well, you want to take us into mushrooms?
Yeah. I mean, do we even need to be taken into it? Basically, everything is about mushrooms right now. I don't know if everyone is seeing this, but it's constant. It's everywhere. It's whether you're watching The Last of Us, which is the most scary depiction that we currently have of fungi in media. But then we also have magic mushrooms taking a big leap forward in accessibility for some people through therapies and different ways of using it, but also in kitchens. Like I live in Mexico City right now, and there's a restaurant here called Tenqui where basically everything is made out of mushrooms, which is delicious, but it's just on everyone's mind. And even I'm constantly getting ads for like lion's mane and vitamins. And there's just so many things. Like, is it for your brain? Is it for your spirit? Is it for your dinner? What? It's just popping up in every type of conversation.
Yeah, it's true. And I'll go ahead and preface this whole episode and tell you right off the bat today that we're going to get terminology wrong. Mycelium, which mycelia is the plural of mycelium, mushrooms, fungi, these are all distinct things, obviously with some overlap, but I'm going to just get out in front of it and say we're using these interchangeably and incorrectly. So I am a huge fan of mycology and have been just really a fan is the way to describe it, because I have zero expertise, but I will get it wrong and I will listen to this later and it will pain me because I am a fan, but I am also trying to be a bit of a student of mycology. So
As you
it will be
should.
incorrect. And maybe our reflection on this episode is just going to be all terminology correction. But yeah, LOL. So I think it's a good time to set up just what we're working with here and how big this space really is. There are 2.5 million species of fungi, more than 90% of which have never been scientifically described, which is a lot. By contrast, we're talking about plants, the plant kingdom is different than the fungi kingdom in science. By contrast, so there are roughly 450,000 species of plants, and only about 11% of them remain undescribed. So we're working with quite a lot. We've got 89% scientifically described and only 11% not described. 90% of fungi have not been scientifically described. So really cool. This is an ever evolving space and topic, and there's so much room here for exploration, and there's so many different types. So, I think there's a lot. So, yeah, what do you think?
I mean, yeah. And I think that's also part of the thing right now. It's so exciting on one hand, but then it's also a little bit scary, which we can get into why. But it's really like, yeah, like what you're talking about. There's so many different types. And this is one of the things that I found in my research for today's episode about just the recipes, the patented recipes of mushrooms, no matter what it's being used for. And there can be so many of them. There's so much opportunity for innovation. It's great that everyone's eyes are on this and people are paying attention to it. But also, what does that mean for people who have been using it for a long time? So I think all the ways I'm describing it, whether it's food or spiritual practice or psychological therapy, there's just so much more to it than even those things, even though those things are so broad. More than trippy vibes, more than dinner. I read Yasmine's book, which is called Let's Become Fungal, Mycelium, Teachings in the Arts. It's fantastic. We'll talk about that more. But you really read in the book about how they naturally can just model working in community and organizing, which I'm really into. I really love the concept of that. I think, as I mentioned already, thinking about community and travel, it's like the thing I think about most of the time. I think it's so interesting to think about how people or things or organisms can naturally organize themselves around something, whether it's, friendship or food or wine or books or whatever it is. Like there's just always a reason. And it's just really interesting to see how those things happen. So yeah, there's just so much more to it than all of the utilities that we've so far thought of.
Yeah, I love that. And I was just going to say, I think, for the purposes of our conversation today, we really want to focus less on their utility, on, the utility of any kind of mycelia, or fungi, and more on their behavior. So, what we're seeing, how they're interacting with each other, their surroundings, all of that, and less about being extractive, oh, what supplements can we take? What can we, use them for?
Totally.
I think the conversation is so dominated by that in many ways. And I understand why, there's a lot of interesting, even mushroom-based products like mushroom-based leather, mushroom-based, something I'm very into, mushroom-based burial suits. So you get into when you die, you slip into a little mushroom situation, fungi situation, and it eats you and you decompose and it's beautiful. So, and we'll talk more about mushrooms and death and how beautiful the teachings there are.
Totally.
But yeah, I think it's such a rich topic, and I'm excited to just explore getting to know fungi, getting to know, mushrooms in a non-utilitarian context.
Yeah. And you know what? Even this concept of mushrooms as as theory, applicable theory, is growing right now. So I think today we want to find out, how do we organize like mushrooms? What can we learn from mushrooms and the communities themselves that use them? But also, hold on, let me repeat that. So we could get into, how do we organize like mushrooms? What can we learn from mushrooms themselves in their own little networks? And also the communities that cultivate them. What do they use them for? Why aren't we using them? We, as in US American people. And also I think a great question is the connected future of your dreams already existing in your backyard without your intervention? So we're going to find that out today with our guest. But first, let's dig into it a little bit more. All right. So where are we right now? This, I fear, will date our podcast because mushroom developments are happening constantly. There's probably one happening as we're speaking. So right now, I would say everyone's into mushrooms, from psilocybin to lion's mane vitamins to enoki with dinner. Everyone's really just tuned in to the benefits of mushrooms, which is good and bad. Because one thing that I saw, this is from nutraingredients.com. This is an article that they wrote, where they were saying that experts are just urging product engineers and creators to patent their mushroom recipes ASAP, because this is such a fast growing and young industry. It's like, we don't even really know what some of these strains do, but you need to patent them now before anyone finds out. So it's kind of like a mad dash to secure your mushrooms, which is kind of an interesting thing juxtaposed with the whole point of mushroom networks in the first place. In all these studies that are coming out, psychedelic drugs, psychedelic mushrooms reduce symptoms of depression more effectively than a placebo, which is great. You would hope so. But this is from December, so people are starting to swap out this natural treatment for kind of this more traditional depression treatment. It's not that we can call depression treatment that traditional, because that's also expanding and developing rapidly, but it's just really interesting.
Yes.
And also, I didn't know this. Did you know that psilocybin is legal in Colorado and Oregon?
Yes, I did. And I have done it in Colorado.
I didn't.
Therapeutically.
That's crazy. Actually, you told me that, but I thought that was kind of like a, unlicensed off market.
No, it was actually no, it was legit. Wow. But there's all these rules about you can't buy it. It's decriminalized, but you can't buy it, so you can only gift it. So it's an interesting the way that drug decriminalization works. Exactly. And yeah, Colorado's been at the forefront of a lot of these drug movements, with legalization, decriminalization, all of that. Obviously, I think it was the first state to legalize recreational marijuana use in 2014. But now is a good time to just lightly dance around one of my favorite topics, which is the war on drugs, and pausing us to say that in the terms of psilocybin specifically, we lost decades of potential research in the 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s because they stopped a lot of the research that was happening, cutting edge research for cancer patients, mental health concerns, PTSD, all sorts of things. They cut it short. And we have a lot of rich information, but it's all from like the 60s and I think early 70s. I might be wrong there, but we have seen, thank God, such fervent researchers coming back and really pushing through these studies. So I think this is a whole conversation for another day, specifically in the therapeutic applications of psilocybin and plant medicine generally. But yeah, doesn't go without saying that, you know, we've had a lot of different people from different areas, from academia, from, you know, traditional medicine and traditional knowledge holders all over the world who have brought this back to light. And or, you know, in some places it never went away. But you know, for the mainstream and for academic and therapeutic applications in the United States specifically, it's been a long road to get here, but we're here. So it's nice.
Wow. That's so cool. There's so much to it. I mean, as a person who's only ever lived in Pennsylvania, New York, and Mexico City, I didn't know it was legal anywhere. So it's actually very interesting. Oh, I want to reference some things that I read in Yasmine's book, but I will wait until she gets here. Okay. So yeah, it's everywhere. It's on everyone's minds. But I think this causes a lot of problems for us as well. I mean, that you already identified one, which is that we lost a lot of research. And I think that kind of plays into things right now because it's kind of crazy that we lost a lot of this research. Now we're getting it back or they're starting it over again because there is a monetary opportunity, a huge one. Don't get me wrong. So I think that that's really problematic in some ways because while it's great that everyone's eyes are on it, that, you know, we're interacting with Earth more, people are wanting to engage with it a little bit better, we are also could be causing harm to a lot of these communities and cultures who already knew all of this, who have already been using it, who maybe they have based a lot of their livelihoods or their cultures around it. And then now the industrialization of this, like most things, will just remove access for people who had it before and who led the way to even get us here before, you know, all of their recipes, all of their methods before there were patents on mushrooms or big industry dollars behind it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, this makes me think about so much of the media that has come out around mycology generally. I think psilocybin specifically, the Michael Pollan docuseries, How to Change Your Mind, is excellent. And the, you know, Paul Stamets doc, Fantastic Fungi, got a lot of attention. And I think that both of those, to me, did such a good job of highlighting the issues with this industrialization and, you know, the billions and billions of dollars that are now in mushrooms, but grounding us in traditional healing principles and, you know, the folks, the stewards of mushrooms and different types of fungi for so long. You know, I think there's a lot of harm that's coming out of this, but good as well. Like we said, can't be good without bad, bad without good. I would love for you to intro our guest.
Yes.
I know you read her book. I have not read the book, but again, fan of mycology over here.
Yeah.
Light
and I
fan.
think that's good too that you haven't read it yet.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah,
no, it's helpful for this
good.
conversation where it's like we're not just doing a book club. We're just, you know, approaching her in different ways.
I think we should continue to do that. I think you should read all the books, and I think I should just come in and roll in, you know, not knowing anything.
Happy
so I
to.
I think that's good. Yeah,
Okay.
I know how to read. I just want to establish that. I do know how to read. Am I a big reader? No. Do I read? Yes.
I'll give you
Can
the
I
Cliff
can
Notes,
I
don't
read?
worry.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Okay, take
All
us away.
right. So, about the book. The book is called Let's Become Fungal, Mycelium Teaching and the Arts. It is so interesting because every chapter in it is posed as a question. These questions are around topics like collaboration, decoloniality, nonlinearity, toxicity, mobilization, biomimicry, death, and being non binary, which, what a rich and diverse set of topics. Also, words that are really hard to say. And I think I did a great job.
I think you did an excellent job.
Thank you so much.
Excellent.
So Yasmine Ostendorf-Rodríguez, based in Mexico City, she is the founder and director of the Green Art Lab Alliance, which was established in 2012. This is a network that comprises of 60 art organizations across Europe, Latin America, the Caribbean, and Asia. The mission of this alliance is to foster relationships that contribute to social and environmental justice, akin to the interconnected nature of mycelium, which I think is so beautiful. Also, more backstory, Yasmine is from the Netherlands. She currently lives in Mexico City. In between those two things was a lot of study, which comes up in her book, and I'm sure will come up in our conversation, but she's been all over. She founded and directed the Nature Research Department at the Jan van Eyck Academy in the Netherlands in 2017. Also, the Van Eyck, I'm going to ask, Van Eyck Food Lab in 2018, and the Future Materials Bank, which is a crowdsourced database of sustainable materials for artists, designers, and architects. She organized reading groups, food art film festivals, and has been a curator in residence as well as a writer in residence in many art institutions worldwide. She's a self-proclaimed mycophile who's interested in exploring the application of a mycological lens in defining fair models of collaboration and organization. Her debut book, Let's Become Fungal, Mycelium Teaching and the Arts, shares 12 teachings of the world of fungi. It was published by Veliz and is being translated into various languages, I think most recently into Spanish. It was selected as one of the best Dutch book designs in 2023. It was nominated for the best book design globally in 2023. And she has been operating workshops based on the book literally all around the world for the past year since the book came out. And she is soon to be releasing a set of cards that will help people organize their kind of own community conversations about becoming fungal. So honestly, that's one of the most impressive bios I've ever read. So that's really cool. But yeah, she's got a lot. She's drawing from a lot here, whether it's her own history, her own big brain, or, the big world that she has engaged with about mushrooms. So let's bring her in.
I'm so excited for this conversation.
Me too. Here's some tips and tricks on how to be often wrong from your hosts, Lisa and Claire. First, don't like this podcast. 2, never subscribe to this podcast. And 3, definitely don't hit the notification bell to get notified about new episodes. Once you're done all that, we can get back into the episode.
Welcome, Yasmine. We're so happy to have you.
Hi, me too. Very happy to be here with you.
I've already introed you. We've already talked, we've said a lot of our, opinions about mushrooms, fungi. We also already acknowledge that we use these words interchangeably, like mycelium, fungi, mushrooms. We don't know when they're supposed to be used, so we're ready to be humbled with your
Okay,
knowledge
maybe
and
let's
wisdom.
okay, let's start with that. That's really the basics.
Please enlighten us. Please enlighten us.
We could be right. You never know. Be optimistic.
No, we're not.
Well, you might be.
Go on, Yasmine,
Well,
please.
So basically,
Yeah, some of the key terms.
Yeah. So the fungus, which is like single, fungi plural, is like the whole organism. So all the other terms that you've just been throwing around are part of that organism. So mycelium, for instance, is the underground network of that organism. Mushrooms are, well, I mean, we say the fruits of that organism, but then you go already into the issue of language where we are borrowing from other disciplines, because of course it's not a fruit, it's actually something different, but it helps to understand what we're talking about. Then of course there's the spores, just a reproductive organism of, or the reproductive part of that organism. And then there are so many other words, but I think to understand what is the difference between mushroom, mycelium, and fungus is yeah, that's what we really need to know for for now at least.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So if we're talking about the whole thing, I always talk about like mycology as the
Yeah,
study of this.
yeah.
If we were to talk about like all the different things that fungi do and are applied for, that would be correct.
Yeah,
Yes?
yeah, that's all
Okay.
mycology. And what's really interesting
Okay.
is mycology as a scientific discipline sits under plant pathogens. So this already says
Oh,
so much about how we understand fungi,
totally.
and how it's immediately associated with, disease, or how we eradicate them, and that they're, yeah,
Oh, how interesting.
exactly. So that's
That
yeah.
is, it totally sets the stage. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Oh, what
Wow.
intrigue.
Very interesting.
Okay,
Lisa, would you like
so
to? Yeah.
yes. So, okay. So, as I think I've told you, I've read this book. Claire has not read the book yet, but I am really excited about how we can now have this conversation because she's already interested. I think I became more interested because I read your book. So
Oh,
that
that's such an
is, I don't know, I feel like
honor.
we're coming. Yes, it was like such like an interesting thing. These were concepts I hadn't actually thought of. It was right there, but I
Hmm.
hadn't really gone there. And now I have a little bit because of you. So that's
Oh, I
really
feel
great.
honored.
And yes. Like if I were to describe your book, I would say it is fascinating. I would say it's innovative in the way that you've done it and also super collaborative
Mm,
because of the way that you convey how really like every thought that you've arrived at was kind of like a bonus thing for being in
mm,
community with all these different people.
mm.
So that makes you wonder, what made you want to write this book? Did you go into all of your travels and your community learning knowing that there was something here and you wanted to write this book? Or did you do that because of your already rich background with like ecology and wanting to be learn more about nature in general? And then while there, we're like, oh wait, I found something.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, I didn't even really want to write a book. um, but
Or that. That works
yeah,
too.
yeah. But yeah, I was working on this shiitake farm in Brazil, in Minas Gerais, and I felt like I was like these little mushrooms, like they were changing me. So they were playing all these games with me to start with. So for instance, I would harvest them in the morning, and it would take me about maybe 4 hours to go through all the shelves, to all the mycelium blocks, and I would have finished, and then look at the first one, like the first block again, and there would be new mushrooms. And I would think, did I just forget those, or not see them before? And I literally felt like they were just laughing at me, going like, ha. And so there were all these things like this where I just thought, okay, either I'm going crazy here on the farm, or they are really like changing like my notion of time, or playing like when they want to be seen, or so there were all these kind of funny thoughts that I had, and I thought, okay, I need to find out if it's just me going crazy, or if this is something that other people also have. And so that's when I started reaching out to mycologists and other mushroom farmers, and they're like, yeah, that's what they do.
Wow.
So,
I love that so much.
That's so cool.
and they
I love
decide when
that
they
so
want to
much.
be seen, and they are only visible when you tune into like a different mode, or so there were all these very interesting teachings. And yeah, for me, writing is the process of understanding something, and so I had to write
Mm.
things down just to understand it for myself, because for me it was also really like a journey of learning something new. um, and then yeah, the writing, it was kind of, and that's also why the book is this weird hybrid thing of, and being kind of diary, but it's also kind of a meditation. It's also maybe kind of a love letter, but it's also all these interviews and then also all these books that I read because I was just lost and dived into literature too. So it's like a weird mix of things, and that makes it also very hard to describe because it's not like a normal book where it like begins and ends, or it's one voice, but it's the voices of the mushrooms, it's the voices of the interviewees, it's my personal story, it's academic literature. It's just this crazy mix of stuff. But I thought that's actually also quite
That's beautiful.
suitable for what we're talking about, this like polyphonic approach.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really beautiful. How did you find the people and communities that you engaged with
That was also
for the book?
very nice, organic kind of way where everyone who I like spoke with, I asked like, oh, is there someone that you really recommend me to speak to? And everyone was super excited and also very generous about that. I think it's also within this mycological world, people are very generous because there's such a like the amateur enthusiasm is like such a big part of it, and so people are very willing to share their knowledge, it seems. And so yeah, they kind of got me in touch with other people again and other people, and then at the end, and this was never like a goal or like a conscious decision that I wanted to do it like this, but at the end it turned out that I've spoken to more than 40 women, so every woman referred me to another woman, which was actually also really
Wow.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. That's really beautiful. Oh, love.
Yeah.
I think that's so fantastic. That really speaks to, yeah, I honestly, I was thinking about that. And I said this earlier, where there is just so many opportunities for metaphor. And I'm really
Mm.
trying my hardest not to speak only in metaphors for this entire interview. But it's really challenging because there's so many ways. It just, I don't know. It's like so meta how
And they're so
you're
useful.
writing the book about this thing and doing the thing.
Yeah.
And then I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And my point was like, is it a metaphor if like fungi are everywhere? It's just there. It just is a part of everything. So
Hmm.
I don't think it's that much of a leap from, you know, what we're actually experiencing with fungal networks and things like that and how they
Um,
grow and change and all of that.
no, and for me also I mean, obviously it's more than a metaphor. Like it's really like a methodology, and I go into all like these other things that it can be, and like beyond the metaphor, but using metaphors um, for talking about things that are complicated or sensitive. Um, I think, yeah, using metaphors for that has just been really useful because it means that we can talk about things that maybe otherwise people would feel either offended or they feel emotional, but through using metaphors from the natural world, not just mycology, but I think the natural world in general, um, is a really kind of softer and kinder way to engage people in conversations about death, about decolonizing, about all sorts of topics that yeah are sensitive and hard to navigate and where we make a lot of mistakes. And so through these metaphors, yeah, you're in a more generous space somehow.
Mm, I love that. I think, I don't know, there's just, I feel like I want to just like go down this rabbit hole for 45 minutes, but we can't. But I don't know. I feel like there's so much there. I feel like this really speaks to my like Aquarius sensibilities, secret revolutionary things. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm really into that. Um, but I think that also we can point to another thing that we were talking about before we welcomed you into this room. So, you know, we had to give ourselves space to be wrong for a little bit before we were
Mm,
faced with your greatness. So we were talking a little bit about kind of the corporatization of
mm,
everything, first of all, but definitely mushrooms. Um,
yeah.
and we were kind of talking about like the two ways of one, how it can be so exciting. It
Mm,
is very cool that we're moving out of this kind of war on drugs, mushrooms are bad for you, into this
yeah.
kind of like new place. And not even just like as far as like drugs go, but just like as food, how people use it for their brain health. And it's all like use though.
Medicine. Yeah.
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 So that's good and it's bad because it's kind of like heavily usage implied. Um, but then it's also, there are ways that it can be so damaging for communities or for people or for, if we start thinking about the US healthcare system getting involved in anything,
Yeah.
is that better or worse? I'm definitely thinking it goes one way in particular, but I'm open to other thought on that. But I think specifically for you, really curious about where you stand or what you think about the kind of rapidly growing developments
Mm,
in the field as a person who is less connected to corporations and more to the people who have been already using these things in their cultures,
yeah.
their lives, their communities.
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, I'm really excited to see that more people are interested in mushrooms because that also means, um, well, I mean, I don't know, it's kind of chicken and the egg, but with a growing interest, it also means that there is more education, there is more research, there is more funding available, like there's more awareness. One key person that I spoke to for the book, she's called Juliana Furci. She's a Chilean mycologist, director of the Fungi Foundation. And she, with a whole group of other mycologists, introduced the word funga to add to the idea of flora, fauna, funga, because actually there wasn't even a word to acknowledge
Yeah.
that this is like a whole world. So things like this really are the big change makers, no? So that means that now there is conservation frameworks to look into, more interest also in mycology as a scientific discipline, and as I mentioned, like before, it was so much more dependent on just amateur enthusiasts sharing knowledge with each other. So this I find all like extremely exciting, because that doesn't only mean that there's an interest of people, but that means that more research can be done, and like we can learn much more just for the fact that there is an interest. But Lisa, you already pointed into, yeah, the the other side of that, which is when an industry, when, well, something becomes an industry, when this interest is too explosive, yeah, then within our capitalist system there is people, companies, startups also jumping on, um, what they see as new opportunities to make a quick buck. No, and whether that is looking at mycelium as a material for packaging, or um, for mushrooms cleaning up oil spills, or because they can also digest lots of toxic materials, or whether that is in the pharmaceutical industry with psilocybin, or whether that's medicinal mushrooms, with the reishi, with the lion's mane, with the shagas. Like there is a lot to be capitalized on if that is what you want to do. And this is so ironic, because what these creatures are teaching us, if you listen, is like to move away from this exploitative mindset, and from this everything is about money, and these capitalist structures. So yeah, this is a very sad, problematic part. The other side of that, like, booming interest, And yeah, this is also what I write about, no? Like how do we navigate that, and what does that mean for these communities whose medicine we are actually now appropriating and using? In what tradition does that actually fit, or where does that come from? And yeah, it really has two sides.
And what I'm hearing you say too is, you know, the mushrooms give us what we need, not what we want. And that's going back to grief also and other relationships, Lisa, that you and I have talked about, like with other parts of the natural world, which we are very much a part of, you know, getting what we need and not what we want. And so I don't know, it seems that mushrooms will tell us, well, if there's something that's super easy to grow and prolific and, you know, it's working and it's just, we can let it happen, great. But if it's something we are painstakingly trying to control and maneuver, we're not listening. We're not using those same principles. We're not engaging with it properly. And so to productize something without further understanding all of it and its essence and where it came from and how it lives and moves through the world, and we decide, no, we want it for this specific application and this specific application only. It seems very, you know, counterintuitive to the way that mushrooms want us to do things. Yasmine, do you have a favorite fungus?
Well, it's like when you have a lot of children and you have to pick your favorite one.
Yeah, we're going to actually ask you to rank all of them. So we'll be here for a while, 2.5 million species, and we need you to put them in an order. We need hierarchy here. So that's how we understand the world.
No, but you know what fascinates me is actually we know absolutely nothing about fungi. You know, we've only identified around 3% of all fungi that are still out there. And the ones that we know most about are the ones, and this is actually, I mean, I need to credit like who gave me this piece of information also, which is Patricia Cation, a mycologist. And she did a lot of research at Purdue University around rust fungi. So rust fungi are, well, it's this type of kind of orange powder that you could find on like lawns or something. Again, it's a plant pathogen, so it's very dangerous, let's say, for your crops, and particularly it likes particularly valuable crops, you know, like wheats, chocolate, coffee, and so
It's got good taste.
It's got good taste, yes. And for that reason, like a lot of research funding goes towards rust fungi, because the fungi or the funding goes there to, again, to make sure they can be eradicated.
Right.
And so this is very interesting how that informs, not just with rust fungi, but with all sorts of fungi, even when we think about the Amanita muscaria, no, this classic mushroom that we think, oh my God, it's so toxic. Like we know most about the mushrooms that we consider, or the fungi that we consider to be scary, toxic, dangerous, whatever. So to answer the question, I would say just like this speculative future mushroom that we haven't discovered yet, but that does not have any type of use for humanity. That would be my favorite. Because we can only think of what does it do for us? Can we eat it? Can we use it as medicine? Can we make a material? What can we do?
I love this
and
answer.
I think my favorite would be, yeah, this mushroom that we haven't discovered yet, that has no
No utility.
purpose, not
I love it.
utility for humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
I'm
love it.
sure there's so many out there
Yeah.
because we haven't studied them, because we
Right.
have no interest in them because
Right.
of that
I love
reason.
it. Good for them. Yes.
Yeah, good for
That's
them, no?
inspiring. Yeah, good for them. I mean,
Yeah,
truly,
I want to
like,
be like
yeah,
that. My idol.
live your own life. I know.
yeah,
Imagine.
yeah,
Yeah, I love
yeah.
it.
And use that type of invisibility as your strategy to escape exploitation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I love that. Oh, so Yasmine, in the spirit of being here at Often Wrong, this is the part where we ask you what you've gotten wrong about mycology, fungi, etc. in the past. Or, what other people often get wrong about this. And, I think for you specifically, we're curious if you've had any understanding about the world that were just completely altered by your, you know, mycological knowledge and journey.
I I'm wrong all the time.
No, you.
That's what we
I
like to hear.
feel it's like I don't know where to start. No, and I think particularly like not coming from the world of mycology. I'm my background is in the arts. It's like I thought that was something completely different, and also people think generally that it's something completely different. But then I was also wrong about that because actually these worlds are also really close to each other,
Mm,
and so every time I think I'm diving into something completely different, um, it actually turns out like, oh, but this was completely related and entangled with what I was doing before. And yeah, it seems, I don't know, if you say, oh, now, like for instance, the new book that I'm working on is related also to interspecies wellness. And then it sounds like, oh, maybe it's a completely different book, but then if it's like no, because it's completely also it's sort of about mushrooms again, and it's about collectivity again, and it's about
Mushrooms all the way down.
not being an individual again. And
yeah.
so it's actually every time you think you're doing something new or different, I'm wrong about that. And realizing like, wait, but this is entangled with that. And uh, there is no way that we can see things separately, not even
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, as an individual. I'm also not even an individual. I'm just like an assemblage of microbes.
Yes.
So
I
you can
love
take it
that.
to any level, saying like,
Yeah.
no, but that's also not separate from this. My
Mm-hmm.
computer is not separate from capitalism, from colonialism, or this tree outside is not separate from my well-being and my health, or the food that I eat, because that's connected to the soil and blah, blah, blah. You can do that literally with anything. Take an object in from your home and see how it's entangled with bigger systems, with the
Mm,
well-being of people on the other side of the world. It's not separate.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is entangled, and that's just like an
yes.
insane idea.
I love
I
that so
love that.
much. Also, I'm only laughing because Claire and I were recording the intro to our podcast, and this was a mistake. But as she was doing the intro, she was like, "I'm Lisa Nwankwo, and I'm also Claire Cornetta," because we were supposed to say our own names, but she said all of them, and I'm like, "No, exactly. You are me. I am you.
Yes,
We are we.
Yes.
yes,
Here we are."
yes, and we are
Everything,
interconnected.
Yeah.
yes. Everything is interconnected. We're all energy. Everything is energy. Everything is one.
Yeah, and
And
what you do has an impact on me, and the other way around.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think it's a coincidence that one of the most common through lines of people who experience psilocybin is the experience of universal oneness.
Mm.
And to
Exactly.
me,
Yeah.
that's that's the mushrooms showing us the truth and
Yeah.
the way, and being able to feel that. And what a beautiful thing. I think, Yasmine, thank you. That was
Wait.
that
No,
was
you
a great
summarized it
answer.
all.
That was beautiful.
You gave the great answer, actually.
No, oh, please, please,
Well,
please.
that's because we are all one.
We
Yes,
are
we are all
one.
one. That was you, Yasmine.
Exactly.
That was you.
We gave the answer
Yes, we
together
came
Yeah.
through strongly through each one
Yeah.
of our screens.
collectively.
And when Lisa is like on one and sounds really great, just know that that's me of the oneness. And when I falter, that's Lisa.
also me,
So
yeah.
that's just Lisa. But yeah, I am. Yeah, that's so good. Oh,
Okay,
was
so we
beautiful.
have two more briefer questions, but I do want to know.
Oh.
I want to point people in a couple directions as well. But first, another thing that we want to ask all of our guests is about like these micro, macro solutions. We brought up a lot of things about like the problem, the solution, the communities. And then we ended with all these things are the same thing. So, what now? People can obviously read your book. I know you have your cards coming out soon. But I know there's also a million other things you do. I feel like you're always in something. And I want to know, what do you think? Like, what can people do with this information? How can we step forward? Whether that's supporting these communities that need to have their recipes and practices protected, or helping people get more access, or making people more interested in getting, getting ourselves better, more information. Yeah, what do people do now after listening to this episode?
Well, there's of course not one answer because it's not like one size fits all. But the last chapter of the book is actually how do I implement these teachings into my life? And yeah, it's very concrete. Now, whether you're looking at it from the perspective of an organization, or as a community, or just in your personal life. So yeah, I think it's just a matter for people to look at their own context, and yeah, I don't know. There isn't one answer to that, and there are so many ways. But and also, I feel it's really a spectrum, where there needs to be room for all these different approaches, and there is not one right way of doing it. And because that also comes with judging others and saying, oh, but you're not doing it the right way because this other way was the right way. So just by everyone being able to find their own contribution, like their own way of navigating and contributing without judging others and without it being a competition of who is the best activist or the most, I don't know, morally superior or whatever. So yeah, also respecting that everyone is on that journey, and some people might have like a smaller or more humble or more invisible way of making their contribution.
That's beautiful.
That
I
is
love
really
that.
beautiful. You really brought it home.
Completely. Lisa,
Okay.
our last question?
Our last question of the day. This is really helpful for us because it helps us, tie together all of these beautiful themes that we've got this year on season 1 of Often Wrong. So if we are to behave more like mushrooms do.
Yeah.
So we want to think about things like, I'm trying to find something that's like an easy connection to use as a comparison. Okay, a fight for,
We had used one of them was the fight for our first episode is on discourse.
Yes,
the fight for discourse is also a fight for community. So things like that. I mean, I would honestly make the same argument here, right? Like becoming fungal, or, you know, however you want to put
Yeah.
it, is also a fight
It's
for
also,
community organizing, you know, whatever. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, against capitalism, against patriarchy, against colonialism, against racism, against all these bloody systems that didn't serve us people, nor other species. No, so it is against many things, and that means it's like also for people, for other species. It's like for a future, an actual future that is not dominated by evil men accumulating money
Yes.
and
Oppressive
making
systems.
wars.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. But
That's beautiful.
actually, for a future where we can eat, where we have plants, where we have
Hmm.
Hmm.
access to air, to water, to just a livable future. Like if we
Hmm.
continue like this, the future seems extremely unlivable to me.
Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
I think a lot of people
Yeah.
agree with that. Beautiful answer.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Yasmine. It's been a pleasure having you and talking to you today. Thank you for sharing
Oh,
your
nice.
wealth of
No, thank
knowledge
you.
and beautiful um, experiences with
Yeah,
the world of fungi and mycology. Thank
truly.
you.
Thank you so much for
No,
being here.
thank
Yeah,
you.
what a joy.
Beautiful.
What a pleasure. What
What
an
a joy.
honor.
We are all one.
Yes, we
We
are
are all
all
one.
one.
Yes.
I'm so excited to know that I'm also part you. That makes me feel really
Yes.
good about
Me
Me
myself.
too.
too. Me
Me too.
too.
I think this was one of the most special episodes that we've recorded, and one of my favorite episodes of the season, just getting to talk to Yasmine and hearing her perspective on, I mean, so many things. And I think, you know, understanding that this is our foray into so many other themes and topics of healing and connection and rebirth and growth and, you know, all of the things that we're getting into. I don't know, this just feels like a really special conversation that we got to have, and I'm so grateful for Yasmine, right? Like just bringing that all together and weaving that web. I mean, you know, especially just healing, and as we move forward in the season, things keep happening, which they will always happen, but you know, it feels like it's never not going to be timely to talk about healing and, you know, growth and rebirth and all the things, but just grounding us in the notion of connectedness, and a reminder, again, what I'm taking away is we are all one. You know, we're all connected, and that is that is exceptionally important, you know, to understand and be a part of that universal oneness. And we are, whether or not we're conscious of it or not. But I think it's a beautiful place to have our podcast.
I totally agree. Honestly, I feel like since we live in a never ending deluge of unprecedented events, um, the conversations still stand and they make sense for all of them. So I know we only have a couple of episodes so far, but I feel really good about them. I'm really excited that we're getting to have these conversations with incredible people like Yasmine. So just another thanks to her for coming on today. And yeah, what a pleasure to engage in that conversation for however long this episode is.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Yasmine. And you know, with that, I think we can officially say we have a better understanding of world building and mycelium and
Hmm.
mycology
Becoming
generally.
fungal.
Yes, becoming fungal. And pick up her book if you haven't.
Yeah.
And
And as always, please head to our website or to our social media. The links will be in the
show notes.
the links will be wherever you're getting this podcast. It will be in the notes. But you can let us know, what did we get wrong? What did we miss? What should we have talked about? What did we not make a big enough deal about? What did we overblow? We really want to hear from you, and we will respond to you in one of our reaction episodes where we will make sure that your voice gets heard. This is, I was going to say this is a democracy, but that sounds like a bad word now, so I'm going to not say that.
Also, it's not. It's not. It's not a democracy. Lisa
It's not.
picks.
Yeah, it's
Lisa
so true.
picks.
I'm going to pick the ones that I like. But
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to be wrong.
Well, thanks so much for making it this far in the episode and listening. And a reminder to like, subscribe, and get notified for new episodes of this podcast. I'm your host, Claire Cornetta.
And I'm Lisa Nwankwo.
And we are often,
Often
wrong.
wrong.
Often wrong, baby.